It is time for 500 days in Pixelmon. I never thought I would commit to completing this challenge, but this has actually been a pretty fun journey that we're currently halfway through with actually. And I don't see a reason to back out now, so here we are for the Unova Dex, which in my opinion is probably the third most difficult out of all of them, the second one being Sinnoh, and the first one being another dex that we'll get to in the near future. Completing this dex will actually push us a decent amount past the 50% mark on a full Pokedex, so let's get this challenge started. So to kick things off on day 401, we have a few basic catches on a few basic Pokemon that just happen to spawn in the biome that I live in. Some of those Pokemon include Tepig, Watchog, Darumaka, and I was even able to find a Mandibuzz. So on the first day of this challenge, I was able to catch about 10 different Pokemon simply by leaving my house. If that isn't efficient, then I don't know what is. I was even able to evolve my recently caught Tepig into a Pignite. Having a starter Pokemon caught already was actually kind of important, because as you'll see later, these starters are actually a bit of a pain to find. But with that said, it was only going to take me so long before I found my way to Ultra Space. So that night, I grabbed my Arceus and headed to Ultra Space. Ultra Space is great for challenges like these because it has a bunch of final form Pokemon that just spawn here for fun. Ultra Space lets you skip the process of cleaning and reviving fossils because they all just casually spawn here in the wild. Another useful thing is that most of the final form Pokemon that spawn here are around level 100, which makes them very useful for KOing bosses and catching other high level Pokemon. So I spent a couple days just running around looking for some final evolution Pokemon, and found a lot of Pokemon such as Darmanitan, Behem, Scrafty, and I even found a level 100 Volcarona. I love going to Ultra Space because it usually has everything I could ever ask for. However, there is one thing that Ultra Space cannot offer me for these next 100 days, and that's legendaries. After leaving Ultra Space, I decided it was time to go hunt for a legendary. I learned my lesson from the last 100 days, and I will not be waiting 50 days to start doing that. So the first legendary that I wanted to go for was Kyurem, simply because it spawned the farthest from my house. So I set out on a 3-day adventure to find an Ice Spikes biome, and on the way, I actually ran into a thundurus raid. I was lucky enough to get good teammates, and we were able to KO it. Unluckily, I was not able to catch it, so we'll just have to move on. While out on this journey, I actually ran into an actual Raikou, which I don't really have a use for, so I KO'd it. This journey was actually really productive. I found a few ships to raid that had shulker boxes, rare candies, and some other items. I also found a few more Pokemon that I needed for the dex completion, and on the night of 406, I did find an Ice Spikes biome. And to waste a bit of time before Kyurem had a chance of spawning, I went back to Ultra Space. This Ultra Space adventure was basically a continuation of the last one. Most of my Ultra Space trips are just for catching Pokemon, and this trip was no different. I found some Pokemon that I hadn't caught yet, like the Elemental Monkeys, Simisage, Simisear, Simipour. I found a Cofagrigus, and the first one of the pseudo-legendary line, Dino. This Ultra Space trip, however, did end up straying from the usual trip, because while I was exploring, I was greeted by an Ultra Beast in the form of Nihilego. With how rare Ultra Beasts are now, it's always cool to see them spawn, but I can't help but feel like this is wasted luck considering I can't even catch them yet, but I guess we'll find out in a few decks this time. Day 410 marks the spawn of the first legendary that we actually need, that legendary being Kyurem. Kyurem wasn't even that bad to catch, only taking a combination of about 5 Ultra Balls and 10 Dusk Balls. But while we can celebrate our first legendary capture, there is another 12 in this dex, so we're gonna have to kick it into overdrive to be on schedule. I got back home about a day and a half later, and I'm not gonna lie, I immediately went back to Ultra Space. Turns out there was a lot more Pokemon here that I needed than I initially thought. We were visited by a Cosmog on day 412 though, so I guess that counts for something. I came back to Ultra Space to finish up the catches that I needed in the Ultra Jungle biome. I needed a Scolipede, an Axew, and I was able to find both of those. But while exploring this jungle, I actually ended up finding a Buzzwole, which is really cool, because up until this point, I had never seen one spawn in the wild. I got back home on day 414, and I started catching the pre-evo forms of the Pokemon I found in Ultra Space. Pre-evolved Pokemon are actually more rare than fully evolved ones in Ultra Space, so for Pokemon such as Clink or Tynamo, I would be better off searching in the overworld. I actually did a bit of exploring in the biomes that surrounded my house, and found a decent amount of Pokemon that I still needed, such as Amoonguss or Carablast. I've caught a bunch of normal Pokemon up until this point, so by now, it should probably be time to go for another legendary. But at this point, I used up a good majority of the Pokeballs I had, and I was also out of money to buy more. Which led me back to Ultra Space. I know, I've been here a lot, but it's like the easiest place to find raids, and high tier raids can give decent items that are worth selling for money. So while I was here this time, I found a Solgaleo raid and a Pheromosa raid, and I was able to defeat both of them. So I spent a decent amount of time just running through biomes, fighting every raid I could, and I ended up with a decent amount of big mushrooms or nuggets, which will add up to some decent money in the end. These raids, however, could not prepare me for the mistake I was about to make, so I'll let past me give you the live reaction to what happened. Oh, run the ones, man. Wait. Okay. Hold up. Dude, I'm gonna lose a shiny because of this? Wow. Oh wait, it's a boss. They're both bosses. No, let me escape. No. No. I got baited. No. 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 No way. I got wiped. I got wiped. So, I may have gotten destroyed in Ultra Space, due to me being a little bit of a dum-dum. But, my luck turned around when I got back home. A Victini spawned, which I completely forgot was a part of this dex because it sneaks in at the beginning. Victini ended up being one of the more difficult catches, making me use almost all of my Ultra Balls and Dusk Balls that I had literally just bought. But I don't really mind, because I'd rather use everything to catch it than not have enough and lose it. I was able to catch this Victini by using my old-time strategy of letting it KO all of my Pokemon and then saving time just by throwing Pokeballs outside of battle. This strategy could be a little risky if a Pokemon were to, I don't know, like suffocate in a block after you get out of the battle. But that hasn't happened to me yet, and I'm sure it won't happen to me this time around. After catching Victini, I started checking where the other legendaries spawned, and I realized that there was one legendary that spawns completely out of the way from everything. Up until this point, I thought Kyurem would be the most, like, out of the way, like, far off legendary. But no, this next one that we're going for actually ended up defeating Kyurem's record by a pretty large margin. So for the next week, I went looking for this biome for a certain legendary, catching most of the Pokemon I didn't already have while on the way. I didn't have very many ocean spawns or mountainous biome spawns, mainly because those are the two biomes in Ultra Space that I have yet to explore actually. So while I was out exploring, I actually ended up finding a couple Frillish, I found a Timpole, a Shelmet, and I even stopped at a mountainous biome where I got a Mienshao and a Drudagon. I was really happy with the Drudagon find because I actually had no clue where it spawned, but turns out it just spawns on very tall mountains. And on this journey away from home, I was visited by an Azelf, which I currently do not need, so it was KO'd as well. And on the night of 421, I found the biome I was looking for, and the legendary we're looking for is none other than Landorus. This biome is called the Badlands, which had a giant village with some pretty useful items in it, such as relic items and evolution stones. The night of 422 was very exciting, as I was visited by the first shiny of these 100 days, and that shiny was a Scraggy. And I just want to say, I very much appreciate the sparkles that are on shinies, because there's a very decent chance I could have straight up missed this Scraggy, since it kinda blends in with the sand. I got pretty lucky with the first shiny that I found being one I could actually catch, because it has happened on multiple occasions where I have found shinies that I couldn't catch because I wasn't on that dex yet. I'm also really happy with this find because Shiny Scrafty, really sick, very cool shiny. Probably in my top 10 favorite Unova shinies. Either way, this Scraggy is not actually what we're here for. So the morning after catching this Scraggy, the Pokemon we're actually looking for did spawn. That Pokemon being Landorus. And I'll be honest, my hands are up, I'll confess. I almost lost this Landorus as soon as it spawned, because I could not find it. Turns out Bud just flies really fast, and it is very easy to completely miss it. So, after internally panicking for a couple of minutes, I did eventually see the 4 pixels go flying on the horizon. So, I mean, it wouldn't have been the worst thing to lose this Landorus, because it's only day 23, it's pretty early. We'd have time to find another one. But I don't know, if this were to happen on day like 74 or something, man, that would be terrible. So I was actually able to catch this Landorus after about 20 Ultra Balls and 1 Timer Ball. Which I'd like to reiterate right now. Timer Balls are absolutely OP. The first few legendaries I've caught were both with Timer Balls. Kyurem and Landorus I both caught with Timer Balls. They are pretty broken. I'm not gonna complain though. So, while I was out here in the area of Landorus, I became aware of another legendary with an annoying niche spawn location. Man, they really just keep one-upping each other. The legendary I'm referring to this time is Genesect, which spawns only in wooded mountains. I've never even heard of that biome before, never even seen that biome before, until I randomly found one on the way home from Landorus. I think I might owe Kyurem an apology, because while I initially said it was the most annoying and out of the way, that title was swiftly passed to the next 2 legendary contestants I went for. And so I decided, since I was already here, I might as well stay and wait for a Genesect. I know there's not one of these biomes any closer to my house, so I stayed here for a couple of days, catching a bunch of new Pokemon I didn't have. Turns out I was missing a bunch of grass types. Either way, on the day of 428, a Genesect did spawn, and not only was this the most annoying spawn biome, it was the most annoying to catch. I used literally everything I had except 8 Ultra Balls. I can, however, say with confidence that catching legendaries got so much easier the further down the road we got. Originally, the plan was to camp out for Genesect and Meloetta, because there is a flower biome right next to this mountain, but I also could not have predicted Genesect taking like 35 Pokeballs on its own, so now I don't have enough resources to stay for Meloetta, and it's time for me to fly home so I can rebuild my inventory. So, after getting home and restocking my inventory on day 433, I decided to start something that I called bounty hunting. There were a bunch of one-off Pokemon that I didn't have yet, so I dedicated the next 4 days to finding those Pokemon. Those Pokemon included Audino, Sawk, Throh. Druddigon would have been included, but I do already have one. Audino ended up not being a very difficult Pokemon to find. Yeah, it was rare, but it also didn't have much to compete with during its spawn time. The real problem, however, ended up being Sawk and Throh. So, not only are Sawk and Throh two of the most rare Pokemon that spawn in the biome that they spawn in, they also spawn at complete different times from each other. Meaning, if I don't find them fast, they can each rack up some days on their own. You can think of Sawk and Throh as like a diet version of the Cresselia Darkrai situation from the last 100 days, where Cresselia and Darkrai started off wasting weeks at a time. Sawk and Throh start off wasting days, but they can peak at the same amount of time wasted easily because of how rare they are. So on day 434, I find myself in Ultra Space again, not because I actually want to be here this time, but the Ultra Forest biome is the best chance you have of finding Sawk and Throh, and even then, they're still ultra rare spawns. So this time around in Ultra Space, I found another Solgaleo raid, which I KO'd pretty easily, and this time I actually also found a Necrozma raid, which isn't difficult. This is not difficult, by the way, but I stepped on a plant that put all of my Pokemon to sleep, so I spent half of this battle fighting myself more than I fought the Necrozma. What's even crazier is that with even such an advantage, this Necrozma resorted to spamming Moonlight to try and win, which I just don't know if I can respect. Either way, Necrozma aside, I did end up getting lucky by finding a Throh raid, which was very needed because it's been 2 full days and I still have not found a Sawk or a Throh at this point. This Throh raid was not very difficult to KO at all. It did take a little longer than expected though, because I sacrificed a raid life so my Volcarona could come back to life at full HP, and I was able to catch the Throh. So, after catching Throh on the night of 435, I kind of had nothing else to do besides sit here and wait for a Sawk to spawn. Sawk spawns at night, so this whole next day was kind of just useless. Except for the fact that a Cosmog spawned. Man, I really wish I was doing the Alola Dex right now. Obviously I don't need a Cosmog, so I KO'd it. But man, just being in Ultra Space makes me very excited for the Alola Dex. But regardless, my patience did eventually pay off, because a Sawk did spawn on the night of 436. So with the capture of this Sawk, I believe that's most of the one-off Pokemon caught. The only other one I can think of right now is Cryogonal, and we'll get there when we get there. But for now, I can finally leave Ultra Space. Okay, so low-key, I've made too much progress in these first 37 days because I barely have any Pokemon left to catch. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 7, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. I have 52 left to catch, and like 60 days to do so. So you heard the rundown from past me. I've caught too many normie Pokemon. So I think it's time we go for another legendary, or mythical, whatever you want to call them. Either way, I found a Meloetta. On the night of 440, a Meloetta spawned, and I would complain and say that it was difficult to catch, but it really wasn't. I wasted some Ultra Balls, but then I threw one Timer Ball and I critical captured it. So if anyone knows how critical captures work, please let me know, because as you'll see later down the road, these critical captures are a little more common than they should be. How many legendaries do I have left? 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is a lot, actually. How many do I have? I have 4. And there's really 12, man. That's kind of cringe. I want to go for Reshiram and Zekrom. Alright, so you heard the plan from past me. We're looking for Reshiram and Zekrom. And I guess Azelf heard the plan too. Either way, I wanted to go for Reshiram and Zekrom because they spawned in the same biome, and I had to do a decent amount of traveling to actually go find them. So on day 444, we find ourselves in a bit of a familiar redwood biome, and the hunt for Reshiram and Zekrom begins. Oh. Where? That buddy is far. Look at him. Oh, he's tiny. Little baby. Little baby Zekrom, level 70. Oh my god. Why did you almost die to that? Okay. So I need Zekrom. No way. No way. Yo. Yo. Man, this is a funny game. A very funny game. So as you saw and heard from past me, on the night of 447, I found and critical captured Zekrom. So with Zekrom out of the way, we do still need Reshiram, so we will be staying in this biome until that happens. But while I was here, I actually did evolve my Scraggy, so now I have a very cool shiny Scrafty. But like I said, we still need Reshiram, so let's hear again from past me how that went. Is it raining? I think it's raining. Does rain affect anything? No. Oh, okay. Well, I got my answer. I was gonna say legendaries are so easy. Yeah, if he has a if this Reshiram has a physical attack, I have to get out of here. Dude. No way. So besides legendaries, the only like super rare Pokemon that I have left to find are actually just the starters. So on day 451, I actually set out to find an Oshawott. It took me just over 2 days to even find Oshawott's spawn biome, and it took me even longer to find my first Oshawott. I didn't even end up finding my first Oshawott until day 455. Leading up to day 455, a lot happened. I found a couple Pokemon I didn't have. Yeah, that's pretty normal. I found a Cryogonal raid, Yeah, that's pretty normal. There's a decent chance of that happening. I found a shiny wishy-washy. Not very normal. Not a very high chance of that happening. And I found a Yuxi. All of that before I found a single Oshawott. So luckily enough for me, I ended up with 2 Oshawotts for my troubles, but I'm not sticking around for a third one because there's no point. So on day 457, I went home because I can just breed for a third Oshawott and then I'd be done with that line. So I arrived home on day 458 and I started getting the items for a Ditto Oshawott daycare. It took me a little bit because I actually ran out of turtle scutes, and the daycare in my nearby village actually didn't have any because I had already taken them. So on day 459, I had finally gathered all the items for this breeding daycare, and now I have to wait 4.5 days to get my Oshawott egg. But at this point, I actually noticed that it started raining, so I decided to try my luck on a Tornadus, and one actually spawned. Tornadus also ended up being a very easy catch. I'm pretty sure it was another critical capture, it just didn't do the particle effects. But yeah, I caught a Tornadus after like 3 Ultra Balls. And I don't know, these legendaries are looking kinda easy. It's almost like if I don't mess up, I can complete these challenges with minimal struggle. So the next 5-ish days I dedicated to making my house look nicer. I kinda didn't like the fences slash stairs going around the big tree. It didn't seem very natural to me. So I replaced it with an elevator. Because that screamed natural to me, I guess. Anyway, I even built an enchantment room because I was tired of my table being on the ground. And that was it. There wasn't really much of a build process. So that's it for your filler episodes. We'll be right back to the action on day 465. Day 465 and 466 actually weren't that interesting. I went back to Ultra Space because I need living dex catches. Like, I already have a Haxorus, but I don't have an Axe UNF Fracture, if that makes sense. I need one of each, basically. So that's what I went to Ultra Space for. So, after cleaning up some living dex catches, I came back to the overworld because I still need 5 more legendaries. So I think we should get back to that. I have found a way to summon legendaries at will. All you need to do is give a stunning singing performance, and Past Me will show you a perfect example of that. Take it away, Past Me. The stage is yours. On a road far from home, you don't have to feel alone. Brave and strong, together we will. Oh, sheesh. Hello, Senior Cobalion. Oh, you're level 70. I don't know why I thought you were level 50. Okay. Come here, bud. Oh, no. I did not know I had poison barbs. Or spike, or whatever. What is my ability? You have to get caught now, or else you're gonna die. Oh no, this is bad actually. Um, it'll die to poison. It'll die to spiky barbs, I think. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Oh no, that could have been terrible actually. That could have been so bad. That could have been so bad actually. Day 468 marks the start of my downward spiral into madness. I spent a couple days looking for a stunfisk, which apparently can spawn in swamp-like biomes, and after 3 days of fishing slash looking, I did not find one. But, pretty fortunately, a Keldeo spawned on day 470. So I was implementing my KO strat, but I didn't want the Keldeo to burn itself while hitting my Volcarona due to Flame Body, so I ran, and I went to find more Pokemon to battle it with, and that is when I learned if you run from the battle, they also don't get their health back. And I found that out the hard way because the Keldeo suffocated in a block. And losing a legendary this late is as bad as it can get. I hope. So on day 471, there was a bit of a dim light in the dark room in the form of a shiny Corphish. And if you don't know the shiny Corphish lore, I actually found 2 shiny Corphish in the first 100 days of this challenge, and I couldn't catch them because that was the Kanto Dex. But now that I've completed Hoenn, I can actually catch this shiny Corphish. That happiness was very short-lived because for the next 3 days, I did everything I could to find a stunfisk. Past me was not happy. Oh, a mushroom. My goodness. There's a stunfisk over there. I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it. I see the stunfisk. I see the stunfisk. Oh my god. Get in the ball, man. Just get in the ball. You would even spawn in the water like it says you do. Nah, stay in the ball, bud. Stupid idiot. God. So, while I can't control a stunfisk spawning, something I can control is the evolution of my own Pokemon. So that's how I spent the rest of day 473, just evolving some Pokemon that I needed for the living dex. That doesn't mean my downward spiral ended, by the way. I'm just gonna let you guys witness what happens next. I wish my Swadloon loved me. Would be very convenient. Hello. I do need this one, right? Okay, you can live a hammer arm. Oh, bro's faster. Okay, what's this Dragon Breath do? Well, if I crit, it dies. My god. Wouldn't it be a shame if he had a physical move and he used it on my Pharaoh Seed? Oh, he does have a physical move. I'm peeling the band-aid now. I'm peeling the band-aid now. I'm peeling the band-aid now. No! No, no, no. Isn't that a shame? I evolved Pharaoh Seed that same day so I can take this monstrosity off of my team. So, a little fun fact about Thundurus. He can only spawn during storms. It took 3 days for it to start storming again. Luckily enough, another Thundurus did spawn 3 days later, and I redeemed myself by actually catching this one. It would have been very bad if I felt this one again. So the night of 477, I decided to head out on an adventure because I needed a jungle biome actually, There was a couple jungle Pokemon I missed, but while I was flying out, I actually found a new structure, which was a giant Team Plasma ship. Had never seen it before, but it was very cool and kind of fitting actually. So on the morning of 478, I found a jungle and I cleaned up the last couple of catches I needed. I had somehow completely missed a Molga, my bad. But while I was out here, I actually ended up finding a Snivy, and after my Oshawott experience, no. I am going home and I am breeding for 2 more Snivies. So after dropping off my Snivy at home, I decided I wanted to go ahead and try and clean up the last 3 legendaries I needed, and the first one I started with was Verizion, who I did end up running into on day 483. And after how my past few legendaries have went, the good, not the bad, you would think it would be time for me to run into some bad luck when it comes to catching them, but no, I caught this Verizion on turn 5 with another critical capture. It didn't do like the whole skip the shakes, but it was a critical capture. It did make the noise. So that is another legendary down. At this point, we're setting pretty good pace. Got 2 legendaries left, 17 days left, and I'm pretty sure at this point I had just about the same amount of normal Pokemon to catch as I had days left. So this is looking like a challenge complete. Days 484 and 485 were spent in Ultra Space for literally no reason this time. I just wanted to go to Ultra Space for fun. However, I kinda wish I didn't come to Ultra Space, because I don't know if you saw it already. You can kinda see it in the top right. I found another shiny that I cannot catch, and this time it was a really cool one, being Delmise. This one kind of upset me, because Delmise is one of my favorite Alola Pokemon, but it's my own fault that I'm not on the Alola Dex right now, so I really can't blame anyone but myself. After saying goodbye to this Delmise, I did find a way to make this Ultra Space trip productive. There were a couple of Living Dex Pokemon I didn't have yet, such as Tortuga. I do have a Caracosta, but I need one of each sitting in the PC. Oh, and would you look at that? Oshawott just casually spawns in Ultra Space. If only I knew that. Either way, after cleaning up a couple more Living Dex catches, I think I'm down to like the last 10 or so normal Pokemon that I need, plus the 2 legendaries, so I need about 12 left for this dex. So on day 486, while I was camping for a Terrakion, I finished up a couple of more evolutions on Pokemon I didn't have yet. I somehow did not have a Zebstrika, even though I live in the biome where they spawn. I mean, they do kinda look like Blitzels, so there's probably a decent chance that I just straight up missed one, but I have one now. And I don't know if the Forest Hills biome that I was in broke, but not a single Pokemon spawned that night. Like, literally nothing. So, I relocated the next day. So, on the evening of 487, I went looking for a new Forest Hills, and I actually found an Aspen version, which I'm a big fan of this biome actually. It's just a bunch of gold birch trees. I'm a fan. That being said, that night we actually were visited by Terrakion, so I'll let the past me give you that play-by-play. Oh, a Terrakion. Okay. Where? Easy crit? Pop. Got him. GG's. Got him. GG's. Easy. GG easy. So, I ended up getting home on day 488, where I was taken for a little trip by a flying hatching egg. And weirdly enough, I was not the owner of a Panpour yet. But considering its spawn conditions are very specific, I'm not surprised that I didn't have one up until this point. But now that I do have one, we are one step closer to being done with this dex. So on day 489, I went back to Ultra Space, and I'm here with a reason this time, I swear. There's one Pokemon that I still need that requires a certain item to evolve, that Pokemon being Chandelure, that item being a Duskstone. And allegedly, you could find Duskstones through KOing Dark-type raids. I don't know how true that was because I did like 10 raids and I didn't catch a glimpse of a single one. I did eventually get a Duskstone by KOing an Umbreon actually. So after finishing up this Ultra Space adventure, I went to clean up the last couple evolutions slash catches that I needed. I needed to evolve a couple Snivies. I never found a wild Seismitoad, so I did have to evolve one. I actually did need one more Gothita, so I could have the full line completed in the living dex. And after cleaning up these last few catches and evolutions, this left me with 6 Pokemon left in the Unova Pokedex. And obviously this isn't one of my 100 days without a random guest showing up to help me evolve some trade Pokemon. After obtaining Escavalier and Aselgor, that brought my grand total of Pokemon needed down to 4. One of them being Keldeo, the others being Serperior, Samurott, and Chandelure. And I guess Zarude wanted to celebrate too? I mean, sure, I'm gonna be honest, I forgot that Zarude existed, so I'm glad one spawned actually. So I'm gonna be honest, when it comes to the literal spawning of Pokemon, I have no clue how that works. Because Keldeo spawns in a river biome, but it also spawns on land. Rivers are water. So after 2 days of nothing spawning in this river biome by my house, I decided to try and fill the river with land so a Keldeo could spawn. This, however, took a very long time, and I got tired of doing it. So my next best option, grab sponges and drain the river. Look, I'm not a Groudon. I can't just stompy stomp land exists now. So I had to get creative. And all I'm saying is that a Keldeo definitely spawned after I started draining this river. You can say that me draining this river had nothing to do with it, but I'm gonna take that credit whether it exists or not. I'll settle for calling it a 200 IQ play on my end. So, on day 496, a Keldeo that was not even a block tall spawned. And how fitting is it that I caught it with a timer ball after preaching to the choir the whole time, saying timer balls were OP and broken. But with the capture of this Keldeo, that is every legendary in the Unova Pokedex. And on day 497, I have obtained the last 3 evolutions that I need to complete this challenge. And with 3 days to spare, I have completed the Unova Living Dex. I think that I can comfortably say that once I finish all of these dexes all the way up until Paldea, that Unova will probably remain the 3rd most difficult, second being Sinnoh, and first definitely being Alola. That dex is brutal, mainly because of the sheer amount of Pokemon that you're gonna have to catch. The reason I have Unova at number 3 and Sinnoh at number 2 is because while they do both share a large amount of legendaries, the legendaries in Unova are way more tame than the ones in the Sinnoh dex. Some of the legendaries in the Sinnoh dex had the capabilities of setting you back weeks without even trying. I don't think the Kalos dex is going to be very difficult at all. It has like 5 legendaries or something. But one that I do think might be able to break into the top 3 over Unova is actually Galar. Because up until this point, I completely forgot about all the DLC legendaries. So Galar might be able to hold a candle to these other ones too. Anyways, all of that sounds like a problem for future me, so I'll let him deal with that when we get there. But for now, let's live in the moment. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and hopefully I'll see you soon for 600 days in PIXELMON.